joining us for today's webinar, Financial Literacy for Teens. This webinar is brought to you by the Federal Trade Commission. My name is William Moore, and I am with OJJDP's National Training and Technical Assistance Center. And as your technical host, I would like to take a couple of minutes to discuss a few features of the Adobe Connect webinar platform and provide a few announcements to keep in mind. Please note that this event is being recorded and will be published on OJJDP Intact's YouTube page. The webinar recording will be archived on OJJDP Intact's YouTube channel, where you will also be able to view past webinars. For event transcripts and supporting materials, please contact the OJJDP TTA Help Desk. For those wishing to download a copy of the PowerPoint slides and other important documents, you may do so by locating the Handouts pod directly above the chat area. Here, you will also find an FAQ for webinar participants that will likely address technical related questions. Click on the name of the file and then click the download button. There will be a Q&A session where presenters will address some of the questions posed during the presentation. Please type your questions into the chat box as they arise. For those participating in today's webinar as a group, please take a minute to help us count. Go to the chat window and type in the total number of additional people in the chat room with you today. If you are viewing alone, there is no need to type anything into the chat pod at this time. Again, please type in the total number of additional people with you today. And I'll give folks just a couple of seconds to type in their additional people. Following today's webinar, attendees will be sent a certificate of attendance. This certificate is sent approximately 1 hour following the conclusion of the event and is sent via an Adobe Connect thank you email. Please keep an eye on your email for your certificate. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you will be provided with a link to a brief survey about today's presentation. The feedback you provide is used to assist in future planning and training. I will now turn today's webinar over to our moderator, Sina Gresson, for today's presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We're delighted to be here today, and we really thank the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention for the opportunity to talk with you. My name is Sina Gresson, and I'm here with my colleagues, Ari Lazarus and Colleen Tressler. We work together at the Federal Trade Commission in the Commission's Division of Consumer and Business Education. For those of you who don't know us, the FTC is a small, independent federal agency that works to protect consumers. One way we do that is through law enforcement. We conduct investigations and sue companies and people to, among other things, stop scams and business practices that we feel are deceptive, unfair, or anti-competitive. Our cases concern a wide range of deceptive and unfair practices. We have mortgage and debt relief scams, abusive debt collection practices, payday loan practices that may be unfair. We look at telemarketing fraud, high-tech fraud, sweepstakes and lottery scams, and so forth. But we also try to protect consumers through education, and that's our focus in the Division of Consumer and Business Education. We work to educate consumers about their rights and educate businesses about their responsibilities. Our goal is to provide practical and actionable advice using plain language. And we do that through a number of materials, all of which are in the public domain and that we'll be talking about in the course of this webinar. They include blog posts, articles, handouts, and other materials that are available to you to use, and we'll talk about them. I'd like to introduce my colleagues to you. Colleen Tressler is a senior project manager in our division, and her career in consumer affairs and education spans more than 30 years. During this time, she's taking an especially active role in helping educate consumers about issues that affect their financial well-being. Some of her most successful national campaigns to deal with consumer credit, as well as identity theft and privacy issues. And Colleen is on the board of directors for the Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Financial Literacy and the Credit Abuse Resistance Education, or CARE program. She has a BS in Program Management and Consumer Studies from the University of Maryland and a Master's in Administrative Science from Johns Hopkins. Ari is a consumer education specialist, and her focus is on online safety and data security for consumers. Before coming to the FTC, Ari worked in personal financial management. Ari holds a Master of Public Policy degree from the University of Maryland and a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ari to begin.
Thanks so much, Dina. Okay, so what we're going to go over today, and by the way, thanks for everyone for being here. It's so great to see 150 of you here with us. We're going to be going over, basically you can think of this as financial literacy 101 for teens. So helping teens understand credit, preparing teens for important financial decisions, assisting young identity theft victims, and we're going to go over free financial literacy resources from the FCC. And I also just wanted to note that the views expressed in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of OJJDP, the U.S. Department of Justice, the Federal Trade Commission, or its commissioners. Okay, so let's start with credit. So understanding credit is key for teens. As they enter adulthood, they will likely face scenarios that require credit, from renting an apartment to buying a car, to taking out loans. For any number of reasons, credit's likely to come up. So having an understanding of credit can help equip them to handle these life decisions. So let's start from the beginning. What is credit? Sometimes people shorthand it and just call it credit, but they're really referring to credit history. And your credit history describes how you use money. So how many credit cards do you have? How many loans do you have? Do you pay your bills on time? If you have a credit card or a loan from a bank, you have credit history. Companies may also collect information about how you pay your bills, and they'll put all this information in one place in your credit report. So your credit report is a summary of your credit history. It lists your name, your address, your social security number, your credit cards, your loans, how much money you owe, and if you pay your bills on time or late. And businesses want to know about you before they lend you money. Sorry about that. I'll speak up. Where was I? And businesses want to know about you before they lend you money. Would you want to lend? Would you want to lend money to someone who pays bills on time, or to someone who always pays late? Sometimes employers look at your credit report when you apply for a job, or when you apply for a cell phone or insurance, and your information is collected in your credit report by credit reporting agencies. And there's three of them. Three main ones: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And one thing I should have linked here, of course, is the place to get your free credit report, and that's annualcreditreport.com. And you can get 3 of them every year, so one from each bureau. And we always recommend that folks pull them regularly. So what is the difference between a credit report and a credit score? So folks can sometimes get those confused. So a credit score is a number, but it's based on your credit history. But it doesn't come free with your free credit report that you get on annualcreditreport.com. But they are connected. So if you have a credit score matches your credit history, rather. If you know your history is good, your score will be good. And a higher score means you have good credit, and a lower score means you have bad credit. And different companies can have different scores. Typically the range is between 300 to around 850. One thing to note is that it can cost money to find out your credit score. Sometimes a company might say the score is free, but if you look closely, you might find that you signed up for a service that checks your credit for you, and those services charge you every month. It's definitely important to know what's in your credit report, but you might want to weigh whether or not you need your credit score and see kind of what the costs are. So with that, I wanted to transition. Your microphone went out. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So with that, I wanted to transition to talking about some of the teaching resources we have for you to talk with the kids you work with about this important topic. So as you see, we have some various formats. We have articles, which I've linked to here, and you're free to use them however you want, whether you want to print them out or go over them or read them more thoroughly, and kind of have more informal conversations with kids about credit, maybe when it comes up, if they talk about applying for a cell phone or seeing an ad on TV about credit, that can be a great opportunity to have these conversations. Likewise, we also have videos, and I'm going to show you one or two of those in a minute, just to give you a kind of flavor of how kind of short and sweet our videos are and how they kind of get to the point, but are really helpful in just kind of understanding some of these more complex ideas. And then for those of you who have more structured education time with your kids, we also have lesson plans that you can use to create effective classroom programming around credit. So with that, I wanted to show you, I guess we have time to show two of the videos. So I'll first show you the minimum payments on credit cards, and then I'll show the credit scores video. So William, if you could bring up those videos. Thank you.
On the hottest day of the year, Marta's air conditioner broke. Marta decided it was an emergency, so she went to the store to buy a new air conditioner. Marta didn't have enough cash, so she used her credit card. The air conditioner cost $300. That evening, her family was cool and happy. The next month, Marta got her credit card bill for the $300 air conditioner. Marta had it in her budget to pay $15 each month until she finished paying for the air conditioner. $15 was her minimum payment. Then, every month, Marta sent the minimum payment. But Marta's balance didn't go down $15 each month. The credit card company added interest to her balance every month. The annual interest rate on Marta's credit card was 23%, so the credit card company added interest to Marta's balance every month. It took Marta more than 2 years to pay for the air conditioner because she paid only the minimum payment. At the end of 2 years, Marta had paid $382, $300 for the air conditioner, and $82 in interest.
One day, Laura called the number for annualcreditreport.com. She wanted to check her credit, and she knew their credit reports were really free. 2 weeks later, Laura got her free report in the mail. That same day, her husband Tony saw an ad for a free credit score. He went online to get his free score. He thought it was cool to know his number. He figured it would tell him whether he had good or bad credit. But Laura was happy to know that the information in her report was right, and that it said she paid her bills on time. Tony still thought he got the better deal. Sure, Laura could see her credit information, but he knew his score, and it was free. But a month later, Tony changed his mind. His credit card bill had a strange charge for a credit monitoring service. It turns out his free score signed him up to pay $29.99 a month for credit monitoring. He got his credit card to cancel the charge, but Tony didn't think he got the better deal anymore.
Okay, thanks so much, William. Hopefully you enjoy those videos. We have those and others available on our website. These are actually hyperlinked right here, but we also have links at the end if you're interested in using any of them. We have them available on YouTube, on our website. They're also available for download. And so you're free to use them any way that makes sense for you all, whether just showing them to the kids you work with or inserting it in a lesson plan. And if you have any issues getting to any of the videos or playing any of them, we'll have our contact info at the end, and we'll be more than happy to help you with that, because we definitely want you to use our materials if you'd like.
And this is Dina. I see that somebody's asked if the lesson plans are available. And yeah, consumer.gov is a website, and you can see from the image what that what the website looks like. And you see there's a toolbox there on the upper right-hand corner. And under that toolbox, if you were to click on there, you'd find all these lesson plans as well as worksheets you can use, presentations. You can use them in any way. They're really meant to be very simple and accessible and just have the practical, easy, and important information for people who are just starting out on their financial future. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and sorry, let's check at this. And we're going to talk a bit about some of the important financial decisions that can face teens as they kind of transition into adulthood. And so we are going to start with education after high school, and then we're also going to talk about buying a car and renting an apartment. So starting with education after high school. So the kids you work with may be considering educational options after high school or their GED. And as they approach this decision, it's important to view this not only as a career or academic decision, but also a consumer decision. Just like you shop for a car or TV, you want to do research and comparative shopping for school. There are some key differences between public and private, nonprofit and for-profit colleges and universities. For example, a public college university gets money from the state where it's located, and it may be cheaper if you live in that state. It may also have more choices for what you can major in or have bigger classes, whereas a private school doesn't get money from the state and may cost more and may have fewer choices for what you can major in. Likewise, a nonprofit college isn't owned by anyone, is mainly wanting to help students learn and offers many different majors, whereas a for-profit college or university is usually owned by a business or person, and usually is organized to make money for its owners, and often focuses on only a few majors or areas of study. There are, of course, also community colleges and career and trade schools, which also have different characteristics, which are also important to look over. And then the next big piece of kind of figuring out education after high school is figuring out how to pay for it. There are, of course, different options to pay for it. There's grants and scholarships and federal work-study jobs. But I'm going to mainly focus on loans today. But of course, you can find out more about these scholarships and work-study all at the Department of Education's website, and I have that linked later. But I did want to take some time and talk about the differences between federal loans and private loans. So federal loans include direct loans, federal family education loans, federal Perkins loans, and PLUS loans, which are loans that go to graduate or professional students and parents of undergraduate students. So there are some really important differences that you'll want the kids that you work with to know about if they decide to take out loans. So for instance, when you apply for a federal loan, you generally don't need a cosigner to apply for the loan, whereas for a private loan, you may need a cosigner and a credit check. Likewise, in terms of interest rates, for federal loans, rates are fixed and often lower than private loans, and private loans can have variable interest rates where they can go up and down, which can affect the cost of the loan over time. And then the biggest piece is about the repayment. It's really important that these teens think about what the repayment looks like when they take out the loans, even though that's going to be years from now, because it can really impact them for a long time. As you know, these loans can be 20, 30-year loans, so it's really important to be thinking about that. And some differences on the repayment front are that with federal loans, if you have trouble repaying your loans, you may be able to temporarily postpone or lower your payments. There may be options to tie your monthly payment to your income, and you may be able to get some of your loans forgiven if you work in public service. On the other hand, if you go with a private loans, they may not offer forbearance or deferment, and it would be their discretion about whether they have any repayment options tied to your income. And it's unlikely that they would have a loan forgiveness plan. Okay, so with that, I also wanted to highlight FAFSA, which is just kind of the portal to apply for all federal aid, including federal loans, and that's the free application for student aid. And students have to apply for that every year, and so they go to FAFSA.gov, and that's where they can get federal loans as well as some scholarships, as well as applying for the federal work study, which I mentioned earlier. So now to kind of switch gears, to dovetail off of student loan repayment, and more so to explain why we're in the student loan space, I wanted to talk about student loan repayment scams. So as Sina mentioned earlier, we're an enforcement agency, and so we actually last October we brought an enforcement sweep against scammers who were claiming to help folks help folks get their loans forgiven or radically reduced. And so you may have seen ads on social media or gotten text messages from companies like that where they say that they can get your loan totally forgiven or radically reduced. And some of these companies are scams. So the companies we went after in October were claiming to be associated with the government or loan servicer and promised to reduce or eliminate student loan debt for a price. But often these companies were doing nothing or providing minimal help that these students could have gotten themselves for free, either by working with the Department of Ed or their servicer. So we always like to talk about these tips when we talk about student loans to make sure that folks are aware that these student loan repayment scams exist and to look out for the signs of them. So as you see here, only scammers will promise fast loan forgiveness. You should never pay a fee up front for help. Scammers can fake a government seal. And lastly, we tell folks not to share their FSA ID, which is basically your login information when you go into FAFSA with anyone, because basically people can commit identity theft if you give that over to them. So I think that that's it for student loans. Oh, sorry, actually, here's the teaching resources on it. So as I, just like earlier, we have resources on this topic for you all to talk with your students about. So we have an article, Your Education After High School. We have a video you can also share. And we have, of course, the education website where you have more in-depth information about the various federal programs and federal aid available. So I definitely encourage you to check that out and share that with your students. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Colleen.
Hi everyone, this is Colleen Tressler, and I'm going to take it and cover 3 topics, which are buying a used car, renting a place to live, and identity theft. So first up is buying a used car. So for most young people, this is a really exciting purchase. It gives them a sense of independence, but you know, we kind of have to bring them back down to earth and say, okay, we have to be practical about how we approach this. So whether a young person buys a used car from a dealer or an individual, a private sale, they need to determine their needs, then set a budget and include the cost to register the car in the state, sales tax, car insurance, gas, and maintenance costs. You know, kids see a car and they're like, I can afford that, I can afford that. But then there are all these other costs associated with having a car and driving it that they need to be aware of. The other thing that you want to ask for are the car's maintenance records. You know, has this been maintained well? Have there been any problems associated with the car? You want to determine the value of the vehicle before you negotiate the purchase. There again, they need to get that emotional thing out of the way. And probably most of you have heard of companies like Edmunds and other organizations that can help you give pretty much a ballpark estimate of what that particular car is worth. The other thing that we want people to get is an inspection checklist. You can download these off of the web. There are lots of resources for that, but it's really a guide to help people know what to look for, especially if they've never dealt with a purchase of a car or really dealt with cars in general. The other thing you want to check on is if there have been any unrepaired recalls on the vehicle. We have a great website, and it's called ftc.gov/usedcars, where a lot of the information I'm sharing with you this afternoon is there in more detail. We want people to get a vehicle history report. You may have heard of things like autocheck.com, carfax.com, VINaudit.com. There again, they're all on that website and available for free at ftc.gov/usedcars. And whether you're buying from a dealer or a private sale, we really encourage people to hire a mechanic to do their own inspection of the car. You know, we've all heard about these certified used cars. Well, that's great, but let's just go ahead and do that double check. Then when it comes to paying in full or finance, Financing, of course, increases the total cost of the car because you're paying on a loan. And the annual percentage rate tells you how much it costs not only to borrow money for 1 year, but it also includes the interest rate and fees you pay to the lender. And believe it or not, rates are usually higher and financing periods shorter on used cars than on new ones. So it makes common sense that young people should know the more that they can put down, which means saving up for those wants and needs and goals, the less interest you'll pay over time. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one thing that is attached to buying a used car from a dealer is the buyer's guide. And this is a document, as you can see on your screen, that tells you about the used car, that the dealer is selling the car with a warranty, if the dealer is selling the car without a warranty or as is, and what portion of the repair costs a dealer will pay under the warranty. It also tells you the major systems on the car and some problems you should look out for. To have the car, like we said before, inspected by an independent mechanic before you buy, and to get all promises from the seller in writing. So there may be something on the buyer's guide, and then you want to negotiate something. Well, don't just get that promise verbally. You want your young people to get that in writing. That is a contract, so to speak. I want to say something about warranties. There are a lot of them. So we can have, as we said, an as-is no dealer warranty. We can have implied warranties. We can have implied warranties of merchantability, implied warranties of fitness for a particular purpose, so, and full and limited warranties. So there's a really great resource we're going to get to on the next slide, but all of this information is covered there for you. A major distinction I want to tell people about: the guide is only required on purchases from a car dealer. It is not required when you buy a car from a private sale, your neighbor, you know, that type of thing. There are also some misconceptions about when you buy a car, whether it's new or used, that you have a 3-day right to cancel, and there is no federal law that says you have a 3-day right to cancel that. There might be a state law, but that varies from state to state. And so the best way to get that information is to check with the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Office. And that web address that you can check is www.naag.org. And that basically stands for the National Association of Attorneys General. The other thing I want to say is that you want to check on the return policy before you buy. There again, you know, if somebody has it, an oral statement, you want to have them show you proof of that. I think another important consideration for anybody buying a car is to understand the difference between warranties and service contracts. So a service contract is a promise to perform or pay for certain repairs or services. And although a service contract is sometimes called an extended warranty, it's not a warranty as defined by federal law. A service contract may be arranged anytime and always cost extra. A warranty comes with a car and is included in the price. The used cars come with this coverage. May come with this coverage, I should say. The separate and additional cost distinguishes a service contract from a warranty. Okay, and the last thing I want to say on buying a used car, we're all well aware of the hurricane that occurred in the Carolinas. And so some of you may have already seen news reports about flooded car sales. This is when cars are taken out of disaster areas. It happened in Katrina, it happened in Harvey, other flood-related incidences. And they take them out of the state, they clean them up, make them look really good, and then they sell them. So it's really up to the buyer to do these checks along those regards. Let's see. Do we have any questions coming in?
They were just asking for the URL.
Okay. So, moving on to renting a place to live. This is another exciting adventure in a young person's life, getting out and living by themselves or with friends. So I really just want to go over some high-level information on this. So when you rent a place to live, you need information about your employer and your income. You need to have identification like a driver's license for a credit or background check. You need to have information about where you lived before, as well as your first month's rent and security deposit. There are additional things you may have to pay for. Extra rent, for example, if you have bad credit, utility deposits for electricity, heat, water, or other utilities, and you may have to pay for the credit check or the background check. Now, if a landlord won't rent to you or rent to your clients because of their credit or background check, you need to show the landlord that you can pay your rent. So the landlord might ask you to show pay stubs or bank statements, pay more money in your security deposit, and pay your first and last month's rent before you move in. And that's pretty common anyhow, that last one. Now, landlords must tell you if they will not rent to you because of information in your credit report or background report, or charge you more money because of information in your report. Now, this information is called an adverse action notice, and the notice must tell you how to contact the agency that created the credit report or background check, and that agency must give you a free copy of your credit report if you ask for it within 60 days. So it's really important to understand there's a deadline there. You have a right to question wrong information in your report with that agency and try to correct it. Now, I just want to say, here again, you may be dealing with scams, and we have an article on rental listing scams. So you might wonder what that is. Okay, so scammers sometimes advertise rentals that don't exist or aren't available to trick people into sending money before they find out the truth. Scammers know that finding the right apartment can be hard work, and a seemingly good deal is hard to pass up. Some scammers hijack a real rental or real estate listing by changing the email address or other contact information and placing the modified ad on another site. The altered ad may even use the name of the person who posted the original ad, and in other cases, scammers have hijacked the email accounts of property owners on reputable sites. So other rip-off artists may make up listings for places that aren't for rent or don't exist and try to lure you in with the promise of loan rent or great amenities. And so the bottom line is here, their goal is to get your money before you find out. This is just a complete scam, and of course we're probably dealing with young people who don't have a whole lot of money to begin with, so we certainly don't want them getting wrapped up with this. So some of the signs of this particular scam are they tell you to wire money, and they want a security deposit or first month's rent before you've even met them or signed a lease. So those are really two strong points there. Let's see, I want to move on to my last topic, so we have plenty of time for questions and answers. And my last topic is identity theft. And so young people that you work with may wonder, well, why should I care about identity theft? I mean, really, what do I care if somebody steals my personal information? Well, a thief might get a credit card using the young person's name, and it prevents them from opening a credit card account in their own name. You may not even know this, of course, until, like Ari said, you pull your credit report and find out that there are things on there that you know nothing about. So that may even prevent you from getting the used car loan that you want. It may prevent you from renting that apartment. So identity theft happens when someone uses a person's social security number or other personal information, like I said, to open new accounts, make purchases, even get a tax refund, sometimes even get medical help. The warning signs can be things like you notice strange withdrawals from your bank account, you get bills that aren't yours, you get calls about debts that you don't owe, you may get a notice from the IRS or find unfamiliar accounts on your credit report. So the key points, if someone has this happen to them, is what to do right away. You want to call the companies where you know the fraud occurred, and you want to place a fraud alert on your credit reports and get copies of your report. Now, fraud alerts are described in our teaching materials at the end of this segment, so I'll wait until we get there. And you want to report the identity theft to the FTC at ftc.gov/complaint. And then you'll see a menu, and you just click on the section for identity theft. Lastly, you want to file a report with your local police department. Now, depending on the situation, your next step might be closing accounts opened in your name or reporting fraudulent charges to your credit card company. Now, a different website, which is identitytheft.gov, can help no matter what your specific identity theft situation is. And identitytheft.gov is the federal government's one-stop resource to help you report and recover from identity theft. The site provides step-by-step advice and helpful resources like easy-to-print checklists and sample letters. Now, I think maybe some of you might be dealing with foster children, and so I just want to speak to that a little bit. So when foster youth turn 16, child welfare agencies, as you probably know, are required to get their annual credit reports. And the agencies must then help the youth clear up their credit in case of identity theft so they can better launch their lives as independent young adults. We have a guide that we can provide. I think we even do on our education page. So the FTC worked with Child Focus and the Annie E. Casey Foundation to produce the free guide, Youth and Credit, Protecting the Credit of Youth in Foster Care. I kind of want to close out this section with just some prevention tips that I think everybody, regardless of age or where they are in their economic life cycle, can benefit from. You want to read your credit card and bank statements carefully and often. Know your payment due dates. If a bill doesn't show up when you expect it, look into it. Read the statements from your health insurance plan. Remember, I mentioned medical identity theft. Make sure the claims match, the claims paid rather, match the care you got. And shred any documents with personal and financial information once you no longer need them. As already said, we want people to review each of their 3 credit reports at least once a year. You can do that again by visiting annualcreditreport.com to get your free credit reports. I think that's about it, other than I just wanted to reiterate that all of our materials are available in English and Spanish. We have multimedia approaches. So we have print documents, we have web-based, we have these videos, we have audios. Everything is free. Everything is in the public domain. So if you find something that you want to use within a publication, there is no copyright. Feel free to lift it in part or in whole to use it. There is a video I'd like to show at this point. If, William, you can pull that up on identity theft.
In today's connected world, personal information sometimes falls into the wrong hands, and that can lead to identity theft. It might start with an unfamiliar charge on your credit card. A business might not accept your check, or a debt collector might call you about a bill that isn't yours. You're not alone. Identity theft can happen to anyone. Stay calm. Visit identitytheft.gov to report it and get a personal recovery plan. IdentityTheft.gov helps you create an identity theft report. This report proves to businesses that someone stole your identity and makes it easier to fix problems caused by identity theft. To create an identity theft report, you can file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. IdentityTheft.gov guides you through each step of the recovery process. You can generate the letters and forms you need. track your progress, and keep detailed records of people you've talked to. No matter what your identity theft situation is, identitytheft.gov can help, because recovering from identity theft is easier with a plan.
Okay, thank you, William. Thank you, William. So I'm going to turn it back to Ari, and we're going to close out this part of the presentation, and then we're going to answer some questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Colleen. So I just wanted to end by pointing out our resources. So as Colleen said, everything is absolutely in the public domain, and so that means you can copy and paste it. You don't even have to credit us. Just use it. We want our messages out there. And so in addition to our online resources, which include consumer.ftc.gov and consumer.gov, we also have resources available in print, and they are absolutely free and they ship free. So we encourage you to check them out at bulkorder.ftc.gov. We have resources on buying a used car. We have various financial literacy resources, setting up a budget, a bunch of different resources, including avoiding scams. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. We also have our videos available at YouTube, and if you'd like to get our consumer alerts to keep up with the latest scams, you can subscribe to them. But otherwise, that's it, and we can start answering some of your questions. So should we...
And just as a reminder to our audience, please place your questions inside of the chat pod.
Okay, so we can start with, let's see, the question, how would you know if the car you were purchasing came from a disaster area? So that's a good question for Colleen.
This is Colleen. So there are databases that are run by various agencies and organizations. If you go to ftc.gov/usecars, there you will find information about those agencies with hyperlinks to contact. And below all of that information, we have specific blog posts that we have written on these topics. So they're important to share with the young people you work with as well, and they always contain links for more information. So ftc.gov/usecars is the place to go.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the next question is there a place to get credit reports explained? They can be difficult to understand for teens.
Absolutely. So the FTC has a free publication called Building a Better Credit Report, and then each individual credit reporting agency should have, because they look different from each of the credit reporting agencies, they should have a way to, like a legend or a way to decipher how to read their reports individually.
Does the consumer information? Okay, so the next question I see is, does the consumer information include access and enrollment to health insurance plans? Unfortunately, we don't actually provide any information on health insurance plans. It's out of our jurisdiction and our area of expertise.
There is a good federal resource for things, if you're looking for topics not covered by the FTC. It's called USA.gov, and really all you have to do is plug in, in the search field what you're looking for, and it generally brings up what agency is responsible for what. There's also a toll-free number people can call if they don't have access to the internet.
Sure, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Sina. I just wanted to emphasize again, as Colleen mentioned, I know you're working with kids in foster care. These kids are at particular risk of identity theft. They're going through lots of homes, lots of people are getting their personal information. We can't urge strongly enough that they check their credit reports. There's a new law taking effect just tomorrow that makes it possible for them to freeze their credit, and that's totally for free. When you freeze your credit, it means that nobody can gain access to it unless you give them access. You have to take a few extra steps. You'll get a PIN number from either the child or the child's guardian. You'll get a PIN number, but a child shouldn't have a credit report. I guess that's the main message. A child shouldn't have a credit report. If a child has a credit report, it's because, or generally because, somebody's been using their information for fraud. These kids are at risk for this. If you'll go to identitytheft.gov and you look at a link there called Browse Your Recovery Steps, you'll see a recovery step for child identity theft. And it will tell you how to get a child's credit report, because, again, a child shouldn't have one. You have to ask the credit reporting agencies to look for check their records for a child's credit report. If there is a credit report for that child, how to clear that credit report and then freeze the credit so that that child is no longer at risk. It's going to make a big difference when they start, if they're starting to apply for any kind of loan. It could make a difference even in applying for a job, because a lot of companies will check a credit report. So we can't urge that enough. Just visit identitytheft.gov. and you can look at the Browse Recovery Steps and get the information that way.
Okay, so we have, thanks, Sina. We have a few other questions I want to get to, and Sina, this might be a good one for you. Does the FTC just focus on identity theft issues, or do they also take complaints on company gross misrepresentation?
Our bread and butter is scams. We do. Our focus is, you've heard of truth in advertising, identity theft. We do computer security, business opportunity scams. If you got one, come and tell us. If you go to our ftc.gov website, that's our main website. There's file a complaint. Click on that. Tell us what happened to you. The more complaints we get, we call them reports now, but the more reports we get, the better able we are to identify companies that may be engaging in acts that harm consumers, and the better able we are to bring law enforcement actions to stop them. That's what we do.
Thanks, Gina. Okay, another question. How can you find multiple different quotes for car loans to shop around? Colleen.
Okay, so we're back to me, Colleen. You can just go online and do a little bit of shopping. A lot of financial institutions, have web-based chat rooms, etc. You can see what they're offering. You can call them up. You can go in. But we really do encourage that comparison shopping, because rates and offers may differ greatly. So it's basically kind of just doing your homework, however you prefer to do your homework. In person, online, calling.
Okay, and one of Colleen's best tips that I found is to put in the name of a company and the word complaints. When you just search for complaints or reviews, really you'll get a lot of information. If consumers are having trouble with a particular company, you're going to find out about it quite quickly.
Okay, thanks, Sina. And we have a few questions about freezing and unfreezing credit. Sina, can I have you help with?
If you tell me what.
So is there a cost of freezing and unfreezing credit?
No. Brand new law. There's no cost. That's nationwide. They used to be regulated by state law. As of tomorrow, no more. It's under federal law now. It's totally free to freeze and unfreeze your credit. If you watch our website, we'll be having a blog post about this. Just visit consumer.ftc.gov. You'll see a blog post, and if you visit any of the websites for the credit reporting agencies, you'll also find out about it there. The one trick you have to know is that you have to contact each of the credit reporting agencies separately. We'll have on our website tomorrow the links that you can use to contact the credit reporting agencies and get a freeze in place. It's a quick and easy process, and it's something that you'll want to consider.
And that's another reason you might consider signing up to get our blog updates. That's ftc.gov/subscribe, and we'll be sending out blog updates all about that new law in the coming weeks, including tomorrow.
And this is Colleen again. I just want to add another tip about freeze and unfreeze. And actually, I used this one myself not that long ago. So I was applying for a home equity line of credit, and I asked the lender, which credit reporting agency are you going to pull from? And they told me, so I only had to contact one of the agencies. And then after I got the application in, I just, put it back down.
And somebody's asking, how would you freeze and unfreeze? And the credit reporting agencies will give you a PIN number, and it's as simple as that, a very quick process. I think under the new law, if you put in your PIN, you say unfreeze, or you do that by phone or online, they have to do it within an hour. So very quick and easy process.
Okay, let's take the last question. The last two questions are kind of asking the same thing, and this is another good one for Sina. What is the new law regarding freezing credit for children?
Same thing, totally free to freeze and unfreeze a child's credit. Again, you have to contact each of the credit reporting agencies to put the freeze in place, but it's absolutely free, and particularly for kids who shouldn't be, going into the credit. If you have a 9-year-old or 12-year-old, they shouldn't be going into the credit markets. If somebody's using their information to do so, clearly it's a fraud, and it's a good protection for them.
Okay.
That answered that.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for our time. So I'm going to turn it back over to William.
Yes, thank you all, and thank you to our colleagues at the FTC. And just as a reminder, everyone, these slides are accessible in the handouts pod, and you all will be able to view the contact information for our presenters on those slides as well. But I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. And so, excuse me, you may contact OJJDP Intac through the website displayed on this website. You can stay up to date on the latest information by signing up for OJJDP Intac's TTA listserv. And also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook at OJJDP TTA. And you can also contact OJJDP via the help desk by following the contact information on this slide. And as a reminder to everyone that the webinar recording will be archived on OJJDP's Intac YouTube channel, and supporting resources can be obtained by contacting OJJDP's help desk at OJJDP-TTA@usdoj.gov. If everyone could, please take a moment to review the disclaimer on this slide. And lastly, we would appreciate if you could take 5 minutes to complete the feedback survey. Thank you all again for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.